It's funny how everything can fall apart in a split second. One moment, you're living your life like you always have, everything predictable, stable, and, dare I say, comfortable. Then, without warning, something shifts, so subtle you almost miss it, like a small crack in a wall that gets bigger and bigger until the whole thing crumbles. We never had a big, dramatic argument that set things in motion. There was no sudden explosion of yelling, no revelation that would have made me feel justified in what was about to happen. No, it was 1,000 little moments that accumulated into something I couldn't ignore anymore. I'm a bit of a stickler for routine. I know it sounds boring, but there's comfort in it. I like knowing what comes next, and I take pride in how well I can keep things together. I'm the guy who checks the locks 3 times before going to bed, the one who plans his day down to the minute, and I guess that's part of why I was so blindsided by what happened. Her name was Annabelle. She wasn't a bad person. She wasn't cruel or mean. But somewhere along the way, we stopped talking about what we needed and started just existing in the same space. She had her life, I had mine, and the intersection of the two was more of a formality than anything else. I could tell things were changing, but I couldn't pinpoint when. It wasn't like one day she suddenly came home and threw everything in my face. No, this was a slow erosion of everything we once were. And I guess that's what hurt the most, the realization that I hadn't seen it coming, even though the signs were all around me. It all started with her working late. At first, it seemed like a reasonable excuse. Annabelle had always been busy with her job, and I understood that. But the late nights started happening more frequently. Then, it was the weekends. "I'm meeting some colleagues," she'd say, and I'd nod, thinking nothing of it. But after a while, those weekends started turning into entire days, and I started noticing a shift in her attitude. She didn't have time for small talk anymore. Our conversations became brief, perfunctory. It was like she was going through the motions, checking boxes. At some point, I started feeling like I was living with a stranger. The spark that used to be there between us, the inside jokes, the shared interests, they started to fade into the background. Instead, I became the guy who asked, "How was your day?" only to get a distracted fine in return. Then came the texts. She had always been someone who left her phone out in the open, a habit I never thought twice about. But one night, while she was in the shower, I saw a notification pop up on her phone. It was from a name I didn't recognize. I told myself not to open it. I wasn't that kind of guy, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the message. It was harmless at first, just an innocuous conversation about some work thing. But as I scrolled, I saw something that made my stomach twist. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe." My heart dropped. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was a friend, joking around. But I couldn't ignore the nagging voice in my head that told me something was wrong. I didn't confront her right away. No, I'm not that impulsive. I let it sit. I let it fester. Days turned into weeks, and I began paying closer attention. I started noticing things I had never thought twice about before. The way she'd get defensive when I asked simple questions, how her phone was suddenly always locked, and how she'd make excuses to leave the room when a call came through. I was getting paranoid. I could feel it, and it wasn't just me. It was the way she started to look at me, like I was an inconvenience in her perfect little world. She'd roll her eyes when I asked her about her day, snap at me when I asked if she wanted to do something together on the weekend. It wasn't the woman I married. Then came the night that changed everything. She came home late, as usual, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't hers. I had grown numb to it by then, but that night, it hit me differently. I was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV, when she walked in, a little tipsy, a little too cheerful. "How was your night?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She looked at me, her eyes a little too wide. "It was great. Just work stuff." "Why?" I didn't even have to think about it. I just knew. I could feel the weight of the words building up inside me, and for the first time in a long time, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I know about the texts," I said, my voice steady but cold. Her face froze. "What do you mean?" she asked, but there was no conviction in her voice. I didn't even try to make it sound less hurtful. I was tired of pretending, tired of wondering. "I know about the guy you've been talking to. I saw the messages. The ones where you're calling him babe." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Her eyes flicked down to the floor, then back up to mine. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Finally, she spoke. "You're taking this too seriously. It's nothing. Just a harmless flirtation." You know that, right? Her words stung, but I couldn't let her see that. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I had been holding onto a small stack of papers for days, and now it was time to use them. Divorce papers. I turned to face her, a calm smile on my face. I don't think you understand, Annabelle, I said, as I handed her the papers. You told me I was taking everything too seriously. So here's the punchline. Her face paled as she stared at the papers in shock, then back at me. Wait, are you serious? I smiled again, this time colder. Don't worry, this part is meant to be funny. And that's when I saw it. The realization hit her. She had no idea what to say. She had no idea how far I had already gone past the point of no return. It wasn't funny at all, though. Not really. The silence between us was deafening. I watched her stare at the divorce papers in her hands, her fingers trembling slightly. It wasn't the reaction I expected. You'd think she'd be angry, crying, something, but no. She was just frozen, almost like she couldn't comprehend what was happening. I could feel my pulse quickening, but I kept my cool. I wasn't about to let this moment slip away. She'd spent so long keeping me in the dark, so long pretending that everything was fine, that I wanted her to feel the weight of the truth. All of it. You think I'm taking this too seriously? I asked, my voice a little quieter, but sharper. You think I've been paranoid, overreacting? Well, here it is. I'm done overreacting. She finally looked up at me, her eyes wide, but there was something in her gaze now. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even anger. It was disbelief. I didn't mean it like that, she said, her voice wavering. I thought you'd just let it go. It's not that big of a deal. I didn't know what to say at first. Let it go? After everything? Was she really that out of touch with reality? How could she think it was nothing? How could she dismiss what was happening between us so casually, like I was supposed to just brush it off and pretend nothing had changed? Let it go? I repeated, my voice low, almost dangerous. How long have you been seeing him? How long have you been lying to me? I expected her to argue, to try to explain herself, but she didn't. She just stared at the papers in her hands like they were a foreign language she couldn't decode. Finally, she dropped them on the coffee table with a soft thud and collapsed onto the couch. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I almost laughed at that. You think you haven't hurt me? Do you have any idea what this has done to me? The lies, the secrets, the way you've been slipping away little by little, and I've been too damn blind to notice? I wasn't angry yet. Not truly. But the betrayal stung like a fresh wound, and I didn't know how to stop the bleeding. You should have told me, Annabelle, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. You should have told me, instead of making me feel like I was crazy for even asking. All I wanted was honesty. All I wanted was you. She turned her head, avoiding my gaze, like she couldn't bear to see the hurt on my face. She didn't speak for a long while, and in the silence, the weight of her betrayal settled deeper into the pit of my stomach. I don't know how we got here, she said, her voice quieter now, almost like she was talking to herself. I didn't plan for any of this to happen. It just did. I didn't know what to say to that. How do you respond when someone tells you that their affair wasn't planned, that it just happened? Was I supposed to be okay with that? Was I supposed to just accept that this was the result of some random twist of fate? You didn't plan for it, but you sure as hell went along with it, I said bitterly. She didn't look at me as I spoke. She just sat there, head hung low, lost in thought. And it was in that moment, that precise moment, that I realized something. She wasn't sorry. Not really. She wasn't even really sorry that she had hurt me. She was sorry that she got caught. Sorry that things were unraveling in a way she couldn't control. I wanted to yell, to throw everything in the room and demand answers. But I didn't. I just stood there, watching her, waiting for her to say something. Anything that would make this make sense. But nothing came. Instead, after what felt like an eternity of silence, she finally looked up at me. And this time, there was no apology in her eyes. No regret. Just exhaustion. I can't fix this, can I? She said quietly, almost to herself. I can't undo what I've done. I shook my head slowly. No, you can't. And for the first time in a long while, I felt nothing. All the anger, all the sadness, all the confusion, they were gone. The realization hit me hard. I had been holding on to a version of her that didn't exist anymore. A version of us that was long gone. Annabelle was gone. And so was everything I thought I knew about our marriage. I couldn't stop staring at her, sitting there with the weight of everything she'd done finally sinking in. I had spent so many nights questioning myself, wondering if I was imagining things. But now, looking at her, I realized how deeply I had been living in a lie. I wasn't angry anymore. No, I was numb. She wasn't crying. There was no dramatic breakdown, no pleading, nothing. Just a blank, empty stare, as if the truth had drained the life out of her. You know, I said, my voice low, almost empty of emotion. I never thought it would end like this. I always thought we'd just keep going. You know? Like everything would stay the same. Annabelle didn't respond. She just pulled her legs up onto the couch, wrapping her arms around them, and let out a deep, slow breath. The air in the room was thick with the silence, and for the first time, I felt the full extent of the distance that had grown between us. I wanted her to say something, to explain, to apologize. But there was nothing. I was done hoping for answers I wasn't going to get. This wasn't a movie. This wasn't some dramatic confrontation where the cheater falls to their knees, begging for forgiveness. She looked tired, tired of pretending, tired of whatever had been going on between us that she didn't have the courage to face. And that, in a way, was the worst part of it all. I stood up, feeling my legs almost buckle beneath me. You should leave, I said quietly, my voice steady but tinged with finality. She didn't even flinch. Where will I go? Her voice was flat, distant. I didn't want to answer that. I didn't want to admit how much it hurt to hear her ask. I didn't want to tell her that she could go wherever she wanted, that I didn't care anymore. But I did care. I still cared more than I wanted to. I don't know, I replied. But I don't think you should stay here. I could see the hesitation in her eyes. She wanted to protest, wanted to argue, but instead, she just nodded, slowly, as if she'd already made up her mind. All right, she said softly, standing up. I'll go. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I watched as she walked toward the door, her steps slow and deliberate. She grabbed her purse, hesitated for a second, then turned to look at me one last time. You know, she said, her voice wavering just slightly. This isn't what I wanted. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I'd already told her everything I needed to. With a heavy sigh, she walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and I was left standing in the silence of an empty house. The house that used to feel like home. I sank back down onto the couch, the reality of what had just happened washing over me in waves. I was alone, really alone. And for the first time, I didn't feel sad about it. I felt free. It took me a while to process everything. When she walked out, I didn't chase her. I didn't try to stop her. Part of me wanted to beg her to stay, to fight for something that had been slipping away for months. But another part of me knew better. I knew there was nothing left to salvage. The house felt different. Empty, quiet. I sat there, staring at the spot on the couch where she had been sitting just minutes before. For years, I had convinced myself that this was what we were working toward. A life together, a home, a future. But now, it felt like a broken puzzle, pieces scattered, nothing fitting together anymore. I spent the rest of the evening pacing around, replaying everything in my head. Every late night she'd spent working, every text I found on her phone, every moment I let slide as nothing more than a passing phase. I had been so desperate to hold on to the image of her, of us, that I refused to see the signs. I thought I could fix it if I just tried hard enough. But now, sitting in the silence, it was clear I was never going to fix this. I grabbed a drink from the kitchen, poured it too quickly, and took a long gulp. The burn in my throat did little to numb the ache in my chest. I hated how it felt, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't help how much I still missed her, even after everything. I reached for my phone, half expecting her to text me. Apologize, explain, anything. But there was nothing. No messages, no calls. It was as if she had erased herself from my life in one clean sweep. And I realized, in that moment, how much I had been holding on to someone who wasn't really there anymore. I don't know what I expected. I guess part of me thought there'd be a resolution, some kind of closure that would make it easier to walk away. But there wasn't. The truth had settled in, and it was as ugly as I feared. As the night dragged on, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone, pictures of us before things fell apart. Back when we were happy, when everything felt easy. I didn't know why I was torturing myself like this. Maybe I was searching for something to remind me of what we had, something that could justify all of the pain I was feeling. But nothing helped. The more I looked at those photos, the more I saw how much we'd changed. how far apart we'd grown without even realizing it. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to scream, to break something, to throw it all in her face. But deep down, I knew this was on me too. I had let it get this far. I had ignored the signs. I had allowed myself to get so comfortable in our routine that I stopped paying attention. I stopped questioning things. I didn't know how long I sat there, lost in my own thoughts, but eventually, I pulled myself together. I had to. I couldn't keep going like this. There was nothing left to do but move on. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to wait for her to come back. I grabbed the divorce papers from the coffee table and threw them into the trash. It was a small gesture, but it felt symbolic. I didn't need them anymore. What we had was gone, and no piece of paper could change that. For the first time in a long time, I felt a small sense of relief. It wasn't the relief I had imagined. It wasn't a grand moment of victory or justice, but it was enough. Enough to realize that I was finally free from the lie we had built together. Free from the weight of pretending everything was fine when it was anything but. And maybe, just maybe, I could finally start rebuilding my life. It had been a week since Annabelle left. The house felt quieter, emptier, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still hanging over me. The initial rush of relief had worn off, and now I was just lost. I kept expecting her to call, or text, or somehow reappear like she always had before. But she didn't. There was nothing. Not a word. I tried to fill the silence. I cleaned the house, rearranged things, even started a new project at work to distract myself. But there was only so much I could do to drown out the feeling that I was living in a ghost town of my own making. The memories of her were everywhere. In the photos on the walls, the empty chair at the dinner table, the little things I had never noticed before, like the scent of her perfume that still lingered in the bathroom. It was maddening. Then, on the 8th day, my phone rang. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't looking for it. But when I saw her name on the screen, my stomach dropped. Annabelle. I stared at it for a second, my finger hovering over the screen. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to pretend it was someone else. But instead, I pressed answer. Hello. My voice was colder than I meant it to be. Hi, she said. Her voice was shaky, uncertain. Can we talk? The words hung there, suspended in the air. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to yell at her, to ask why she left, why she didn't try to fix this. Another part of me, though, was just exhausted. The anger had faded, and now all that was left was the raw ache of a betrayal I couldn't undo. I don't know what there is to talk about, I said quietly. You made your choice. I didn't. She paused, like she was searching for the right words. I didn't want it to end like this. I don't know where we went wrong. I could hear the guilt in her voice, but it wasn't enough. It didn't undo what had happened. It didn't change the fact that she had been with someone else, hiding it from me for who knows how long. I exhaled sharply. We stopped talking, Annabelle. We stopped connecting. You were out every night. You were always working, always too busy for us. How could you not know where it went wrong? I thought, she faltered again. I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want you to think it was something serious. I swallowed hard. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You never thought it was serious. You never thought about what this would do to me. I was just a guy to pass the time with while you had your fun. No, that's not fair, she said quickly. It wasn't like that. I never meant to hurt you. You know that, right? But I didn't know. I didn't know anymore. How could I? How could I trust any of it? I don't know what you want from me, Annabelle. I really don't, I said, my voice thick with frustration. You left. You made that choice. I'm not sitting here waiting for you to fix this. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could feel her hesitation, the uncertainty in her every word. I don't expect you to wait for me. I want to explain. Explain? I almost laughed at the absurdity. Explain what? How you spent weeks lying to my face. How you made me feel like I was crazy for questioning where you were. I didn't want to hurt you, okay? I didn't know how to deal with it, with everything. I thought I could keep it all under control. There it was again, her inability to admit that she had crossed a line. She wasn't ready to face the reality of what she'd done. She was too focused on her own guilt to understand that it wasn't just about the affair. It was about everything she had taken for granted, about the years we spent together that suddenly meant nothing to her. I can't fix this, Annabelle, I said, my voice almost breaking. You can't fix this. We're done. Please, she said softly. I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to explain everything. I never wanted it to end like this. And with that, I knew. I knew that the person I thought I married, the woman I thought I knew, was gone. There was no coming back from this. No amount of explanation could change what she had done. "I think you're too late," I said, my words final, and I hung up the phone. The call ended, but the emptiness didn't. It lingered, pressing down on me, reminding me that even after everything, I still didn't have the answers I needed. But I was done asking for them, done waiting for closure that might never come. It was a strange feeling, that moment after the call ended. I wasn't relieved. I wasn't angry. I was just done. Something about that final exchange with Annabelle clicked in me. It wasn't bitterness that lingered. It was an overwhelming clarity. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her to explain herself. All I needed was to let go. But that didn't mean I knew how. I sat there, staring at my phone screen, feeling the emptiness creep in again. The silence was deafening. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could finally breathe, but the air still felt thick, heavy. I was free from the lies, free from the endless wondering, but the weight of everything still hung over me. It was hard to shake the feeling that something essential, was missing. I spent the next few days doing what I should have done weeks ago, getting out of my own head. I went to the gym, started picking up old hobbies I had abandoned, things that made me feel like me again, things I hadn't done since before I let myself get lost in her world. I realized how much of me I had sacrificed for her, for us. I'd given up parts of myself, thinking it would make things easier, smoother. But now, it felt like I was rediscovering who I was, who I had been before I started to question my every move for the sake of someone else. But even with that, the nights were still hard. The silence of the empty bed, the ghost of her presence lingering in the rooms, reminded me that there were no easy answers. There was no instant relief from the emotional bruises she had left behind. One evening, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, a glass of wine in front of me, scrolling through old photos again. It was a bad habit, I knew, but I couldn't help myself. The images were haunting, the vacations we took, the moments we shared that seemed so perfect at the time. They felt like memories of someone else's life now. I had been living in a fog, too focused on what I thought we had, too afraid to face what was really happening. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. A text from Annabelle. I stared at it for a moment before opening it. "I think we need to talk." I felt nothing. No longing, no desire to reach out. Just a hollow feeling of exhaustion. I didn't want to talk. I didn't need to. I stared at the message for a while, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to respond, to lash out, to demand answers, to remind her of everything she had done. But I didn't. I simply typed back, "I'm done." I hit send, closed the phone, and set it aside. And that was it. That was the moment I realized I didn't need to keep living in the past. No more wondering what went wrong. No more begging for closure. What I had with Annabelle was over, and it wasn't coming back. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in months. For the first time in ages, I wasn't trapped in a cycle of what-ifs. I wasn't waiting for a call, a text, an apology. I was just moving on, and it felt freeing. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like I was in control again. It's funny how life doesn't really give you a chance to move on in peace. Just when you think you've figured things out, the universe throws something at you that you never saw coming. For me, it was a knock at the door. It had been a couple of weeks since I'd told Annabelle that I was done. I hadn't heard from her since the text exchange, and honestly, I was starting to feel like I had a grip on this new chapter of my life. The routine I had fallen into was starting to feel comfortable again. I was getting my strength back. I was healing. But that day, I was in the middle of cooking dinner when I heard it. A sharp knock, followed by a pause. I froze, knife halfway through chopping onions. I wasn't expecting anyone. Not after everything that had happened. Not after I made it clear that I was done. I hesitated for a second, my mind racing. Who could it be? I wasn't expecting any deliveries. No one knew I was even home. I glanced at my phone. No messages. No calls. Another knock. This one was more urgent. I wiped my hands on the towel, walked over to the door, and peered through the peephole. For a second, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, standing on the other side was her. Annabelle. I couldn't believe it. I almost didn't open the door, but before I could stop myself, I turned the handle. She was standing there, looking a bit disheveled, her eyes wide with an intensity one hadn't seen in weeks. "Hi," she said, her voice shaky. Can we talk? I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at her, feeling the weight of the situation settle over me. What are you doing here? I finally asked, my voice even, though I could feel the old emotions start to bubble up again. I need to explain. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I can't keep going like this. I can't keep pretending like I didn't hurt you. Her words were rushed, like she couldn't get them out fast enough. I crossed my arms, standing in the doorway. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear this. I wasn't sure if I even cared anymore. But there was something in her eyes, a rawness, an honesty that I hadn't seen before. Maybe that's why I stepped aside and let her in. She walked into the living room, nervously sitting on the edge of the couch. I stayed by the door, not ready to sit beside her just yet. I don't even know where to begin, she continued, looking at the floor. I've been a mess. I know I messed up. I lied to you. I lied to myself. I thought I could keep everything under control, but I couldn't. I didn't interrupt her. I let her talk. Part of me was still holding on to the hope that there would be something, some revelation, some reason that would make everything make sense. But the other part of me, the part that was healing, the part that was starting to move on, just wanted to tell her to leave. To shut the door on this chapter of my life and never look back. I don't know what I was thinking, Annabelle continued, her voice shaking now. When I started seeing him, it wasn't supposed to mean anything. It wasn't supposed to be serious. But it became something else. And I couldn't stop myself. And I didn't want to face you. I didn't know how. I felt a knot tighten in my chest, but I said nothing. I didn't know if I even wanted to hear this anymore. Why now? I finally asked. Why come here? Why come to me after everything? She looked up at me, her eyes searching mine. Because I can't live with myself anymore. I can't keep pretending I didn't destroy something good. I know I can't fix it. But I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. I was selfish. Her apology hit harder than I expected. But it wasn't the apology I needed. It was the one she needed to give herself, not me. I nodded slowly, but I could feel the walls go back up inside me. I don't need your apology, Annabelle, I said quietly. I needed you to be honest with me from the start, not after everything's fallen apart. She looked like she was about to say something else, but I stopped her. You've already said what you needed to say. It's too late. I'm done. For a moment, neither of us moved. I could see her struggle, searching for the right words, but the reality of what she had done was sitting between us, thick and unspoken. I knew there was nothing more to say. Goodbye, Annabelle, I said, my voice calm but firm. She stood up, her eyes welling with tears, but she didn't say anything else. She just turned and walked out, leaving me standing in the doorway, feeling strangely empty. But I wasn't heartbroken. Not anymore. I was just free. It's strange how life works out sometimes. I had no idea what was coming next when I closed the door on Annabelle that day. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I thought I'd be. It wasn't the fierce rage I imagined. It was more like an overwhelming sense of peace, the kind you feel when a storm finally clears. Over the next few weeks, I began to rebuild. I filled my days with things that mattered, things that were mine. I focused on my work, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages, and started to embrace the freedom I never realized I had lost. The weight of Annabelle's betrayal, though heavy at first, slowly began to fade into something that didn't define me. But life has a way of giving you little reminders that justice isn't always immediate, and sometimes the universe has a way of balancing things out. About a month after our final confrontation, I received an unexpected email from an old friend of Annabelle's. A guy I'd met a few times at parties, someone she'd always mentioned in passing, but who I never really thought much about. The email was short, but it made my blood run cold. Hey, just wanted to give you a heads up, the message read. Annabelle's seeing someone else now. It's been going on for a while. I didn't want to say anything, but I thought you should know. My heart dropped. For a second, I felt that old rush of betrayal, that same sting that had nearly consumed me weeks ago. But this time, it was different. This time, I didn't care. I didn't respond to the email right away. I just sat there, processing it. Annabelle had already moved on, just like I knew she would. But what hit me more than anything was how quickly she moved from one person to another, without a second thought. The person she had been with, the one I had suspected, wasn't just some passing fling. It was the man she had been seeing while we were still together. The one who had been texting her, the one she had so carelessly hidden from me. It didn't surprise me. It didn't even anger me. but it did make something inside me click. Karma had a way of catching up. A few weeks later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Annabelle's new relationship was falling apart. She was the one who had been dumped this time. Apparently, her new guy had found out about her past with me, and when the truth came out, he didn't hesitate to walk away. I'll be honest, part of me felt vindicated. Not because I wished ill on her, but because I knew that she hadn't learned her lesson the first time. She hadn't taken responsibility for what she'd done. Now, life had a way of showing her exactly what it felt like to be the one left behind. For the first time in months, I smiled. Not out of cruelty, but out of relief. I had spent too long wondering if I'd ever get my justice, if I'd ever get the closure I deserved. But sometimes, closure doesn't come the way we expect it. It comes in the form of karma, of watching someone else feel the weight of their own actions. Annabelle's world had come crashing down, just as mine had. But the difference was that I had rebuilt myself. I had learned to move forward. She, on the other hand, was still stuck in the cycle of lies, selfishness, and regret. And me? I was finally free. I realized that I didn't need to hold on to the past anymore. I didn't need her, or anyone, to validate my worth. I had learned to stand on my own. The road ahead was mine to carve, and for the first time in a long time, I could see the path clearly. No more shadows of the past. No more unanswered questions. Just the freedom to live my life, without looking over my shoulder. It wasn't the revenge I thought I needed, but it was enough.